if we're buying technology and putting it in place, you have to invest yourself in it to ensure that it's going to be successful. And you do that not just for the sake of yourself, but for the sake of your team, because everything that you do for your team, and everything that you do to improve your team's life, like moving just obstacles. I just always imagine, doing this, moving obstacles, moving obstacles, moving obstacles. That makes their lives better. And that means that they're more excited to do their job every day, which ultimately pays off for you in the end.
Welcome to the Strategy with Jason podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on? Podcast Nation, is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me another episode of Strategy with Jason. Today I have a very special guest, a very special friend of mine that I've been looking forward to talking to all week long.
Me too.
Ray, what's going on? How are you doing?
All is good. I'm happy to be here. And I'm super excited just to get to spend time talking with you, Jason. And I wore my orange just for you. It's the closest I've got.
Man, that's the closest you got. You know what? That is the one thing about orange. There's like 50,000 different shades.
Yes, exactly.
You know how hard it is? People go, wow, Jason, you have a lot of orange. I'm like, you don't understand the time it takes to make that kind of dedication. There's 1,000 different variations of orange out there, and I'm always trying to find the right orange. Anyways, I digress.
Mine's more of a winter orange, I think, that I have on today. But hey, it's all I've got. I was trying to pay homage to you, so.
Thank you. Hey, Ray, I'm so glad that you get to come do this. It's so funny when I was thinking about it. Like, we've been friends for a long time. We've never done a podcast together, and I'm like, what?
I know.
We got to do this. So, and I love the topic today. Everyone watching, listening right now, we're gonna dive super deep into sales leadership, which is one of my favorite topics, and I know, Ray, it's one of your favorite topics as well. So I'm excited to get into it. But I love kicking off these podcasts, Ray, with a little origin story because. Hey, I'm just fascinated, because I don't think anybody just wakes up one day and goes, hey, I'm going to spend the better part of my life in the automotive industry.
Right.
So, Ray, let's start there. How did you get started in this crazy little world we call the automotive industry?
So I got into it a very long time ago at a very young age. Started selling cars for the John Eagle dealership group back in Dallas, Texas, where I grew up. And his dad was actually leading the dealership group back then. That's how long ago it was. And I was just going to do it till I figured out what I wanted to do. It was something that I knew I loved cars. I could sell anything. And I knew I'd figure out my way, once I did it. And then as with many people you talk to about automotive and how they got into it, it gets in your blood and you get stuck. And that's all I've ever done in the last, 30 plus years.
You know what it is. I tried to get out of the automotive industry for like 3.5 weeks, some like dark month in 2015. And it only lasted about 3.5 weeks. And I was just like that episode from The Godfather. I just sucks right back in, right? But it gets in your blood, and it's,
It does.
and that's a heck of a dealership to be cutting your teeth on, man. I'm sure you got some fish stories that you can tell, and I'm going to get some out of it. But well, let's kick this off with our sales leadership, because I know this is a topic that we're both very, very passionate about. And honestly, Ray, talk about a timely topic too.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Totally.
What's going on with the industry right now, and everyone's kind of getting back to basics. We're gonna get back to basics. It's not enough that we can just come in and flip the lights on and have the level of profitability that we've had, in the past few years. Now we gotta work at it. And I think what you're seeing, and I'm sure you're seeing the same thing. I know I'm seeing this. You're seeing those leaderships, those real operators, that cream kind of rise to the top scenario.
Yeah.
So, like, I want to start off there actually with you, Ray. I want to ask, that's my first question of you. When you think of a sales leader,
Yes.
What do you picture? How do you picture a sales leader?
So that's a great question, and there's a big difference in a sales leader or a sales manager. I think, and it's so cliche to say, but it's true. I think in the automobile industry, the retail side, and then outside of it, there's a difference in getting involved in your staff's success, helping them succeed, fostering success, rolling up your sleeves shoulder to shoulder with them and helping them be the best that they can be, and coaching them through the experiences that they're having, on either the showroom floor or in the field, talking to dealers, through a vendor side. There's a lot that that if you're a person who's been promoted into a sales leadership role, you should have, I should say, experienced a lot and you've been through a lot of growth to get there, right? And so if you take the time to really transfer that knowledge and share that knowledge with the folks that are on your team, then they're going to be better for that, right? And I think so many folks, particularly in this industry, get either promoted without any skills or training and they don't seek it out on their own. But also they're, I don't know how to say this without it just sounding bad, but it's true.
Yeah.
There's so many people in leadership roles that try to keep folks beneath them with a lack of knowledge so that they stay there, right? And they don't become competition to them. I mean, I think that all goes back to like the liner closer setup in dealerships, right? If you take a look at that scenario and that setup and structure, you don't see that much anymore, thankfully, because I don't think it really fostered growth in people very much, right? Um, and folks would get, promoted, or I'm sorry, folks would get, sort of held down. And then those that did get promoted were very strict in not sharing or fostering any knowledge or growth for the people that were on their teams. And I think
Well,
that was,
and that's typically what you see in a manager's mentality versus kind of that leadership's
yeah,
mentality. When we think of, and I love the fact that you brought up. Actually, I'm going to just go down one rabbit hole because I love the fact that you brought up, how we're not trained. And
yeah,
like, wait, I'm going to tell you, this is just my personal experience. Let's see. When I became a floor manager, I would have been 20.
yeah,
All right. So I was 20 years old and I got promoted to a floor manager, which then, now this was a very large GM dealership, which mean that I was responsible for 5 sales guys.
right,
That's that. I mean, that's how big. There was, I think
yeah,
altogether roughly almost 60 sales guys, 50, 60 sales guys, somewhere in between there, right?
yeah,
And they were divided up among the floor managers, and then the up above was the general sales managers, and then the GM, and so on and so forth, right? And at 20 years old, all of a sudden I had to lead 5 people that were all within easily 10, 15 years older than myself.
yeah,
Right? And it was like literally, it's like someone tossing the keys to a manual transmission car and telling you need to go on a road trip across the country.
right,
You
yeah.
know? Like that's what it was. I mean, I had no clue what the heck I was doing, but that's how it worked. And I think it still works sometimes at some dealerships like that.
It
Um,
does.
you don't
I think the same thing happened to me, Jason, in that, 21, 22 years old, or, further beyond that in my career, being in a leadership role, managing men, in Texas. I'm a woman, 50, 60-year-old men and in my early 20s. And there was a lot of initial, like, who are you? What are you going to teach me? Who do you think you are, kind of thing. And it took a lot of effort, but, you win them over. And then ultimately they're doing better and you're all doing better, and it becomes a success story in the end. 9 out of 10 times, I would say. I mean, if it didn't, then we would have discussions and then separate. But I always tried to just put that aside, right? The fact that they didn't want to work for a kid in their mind, especially a girl kid, right? And so you just got to put that aside. And I think one of the things, going back to your initial question about sales leadership, is there's a compassion factor that is huge, right? In that versus a manager or a boss, if you will. I think you care about people and you care about them and want to help them succeed. There's that empathy and that care. Forget the fact that if the better they do, the better you do. I mean, that's
well,
a byproduct, right? But if that's your motivator, then it's not going to work. If your motivator is that I really care about these people, I want to figure out what makes them tick and help them navigate the way to success, then I mean, it's a good formula, right?
no, you're absolutely right. I mean, look, I was a young punk kid. All
Yeah,
right. Every single person that I was now overseeing had many, many years more experience than I did. And and honestly, Ray, there was no way I was ever going to manage this group of men. Right. Like I was not, but I did find, because I couldn't manage. I was going to manage their efforts. Like, all right, I'm going over to Bob. Bob's 62 years old, by the way. Uh,
right.
Bob, you haven't hit your phone call follow up quota today. I'm going to need you. And he's just going to look at me and just give me, and then Bob spent a stitch and a 10-year run in the pen for doing some drill. No, I'm
That's so true.
thanking me for all I know, right? Like,
That's
but
so funny.
anyways, anyways, what I was good at, and it just kind of look for me, it was just totally by accident. I was really good at numbers. All right, so I was really good at calculating probability and kind of showing them based on what their current effort. I was a big baseball fan too. So like I love numbers. I love keeping track of
Moneyball.
scores and at bats and RBIs and just so like so sales. I was like, well, this is just a combination of just those exact same stats, right? And
Mhm.
as I was presenting and showing them their stats, I watched their egos start to kick in and say, well, no. I'm better than Bob. Are you kidding
Right.
me? And
Exactly.
it naturally happened for me that way. I got lucky and it naturally happened. But to your point, I don't think that's the case for many, right?
Yeah, well, it's not, and you make a great point in that. I always say validation replaces negotiation. I mean, I've said that, and it does it in many ways, right? Like not just in selling a car. If you show them the info that you're talking about, obviously you don't have to negotiate as hard because it validates it. But you do that with people too, and you show them how they can achieve. You show them a path to where they need to be, and then you show them everybody else's performance, and that's when their eyes are opened. I mean, they're going, oh, like you said, oh wow, I'm way better than him. Why is he outperforming me? And then it starts to open the minds, and the gears start going, and then the conversations get easier, right, as a leader. But
No,
um,
you're so right. Look, the moment I started leading their efforts versus managing their
mhm,
activities, but I got lucky. No one was there to show me how to do it. So,
right,
so still watch a lot of people. But okay, so I want to get, we'll start really kind of going to people because I know you're kind of touching on this a little bit as we're kind of progressing in. But so let's talk about people and I'm. I'm gonna give you a little comment, and I want to get your thoughts on this. All right.
sure,
For me as a sales leader, I had to learn really quick that I did not have to like every single person I worked with
that's true. Yeah,
to
it's
ultimately
a
be
hard
able.
concept to get through first, but once you do, it's 100% true.
Right. So so how do you go from manage leading yourself to now leading people and the different dynamics those people are? What's some of the best advice you can give for that?
Well, I think there's an old saying that is true, and it's that the best thing about managing people, and the worst thing about managing people is people. I
Yeah,
think it's
exactly.
100% true, and I think I love people. So fortunately, I see, um, sometimes what's causing them to be that way. I can dig in and figure it out, and kind of start to touch on. If you get people to open up, sometimes they feel like they could trust you, and then they'll start to put that hard shell down a little bit. But it's something that, regardless of how you feel about a person, and because you can't show favoritism either, right? You can't treat someone worse or better. You just have to work with, here's the role, here are the expectations of the role.
Mm,
No one person is more important than what we're all trying to accomplish, right? So when you look at it that way, and you help ensure that that's the way that everybody else understands that you're leading them, and then just being able and willing to help them just like you would help the person that is the easiest to work with, and spending equal amount of time with them, and giving some positive feedback about maybe another way that some things can be handled, once you've earned that trust a little bit, and encouraging them to maybe look at different perspectives about things. I think you don't always win, right, Jason? I mean, you and I both know that. You can't always turn everyone, and if you've given it your best effort and it doesn't happen, then you've done all you can. But usually, if you keep at it and you go about it, with the right mindset, and I can't be defensive, then you can turn things around.
No, you look, you're absolutely right, and I know what you're kind of alluding to is this mystical thing called called emotional intelligence, and,
Yes.
like, right, I'm gonna be straight up and honest with you. Um, I did not have an overly high EQ. All right, I came from uh, a dealership and a culture. I know we're going to talk into culture because we're going to get into that, but I came from a place where it was suck it up, Buttercup, check
Yeah.
your shit at the door, all right, and just shut up and get back to work, all right.
Yes.
In fact, I remember had a lady, a lady that worked for me for a while, super nice lady, who for 1 year for Christmas crocheted me this beautiful pillow, and it said "Shut the up and get back to work." And
A
and
blue motto around there.
I, of course, everyone thought it was funny. I thought it was cute, but then I actually got thinking about it. I'm like, wow, I actually do say that so often that
Wow.
someone decided to go crochet it into a pillow. And that was kind of my aha moment of, you know what, maybe I'm doing this wrong. And, it wasn't until about, I would say 2010 to 2011 that I really started to figure out, like, I didn't just have to yell at people and force them to do stuff. But let's dive a little bit
That's
into
eye-opening.
emotional intelligence and how you feel like that can play out, and help in fostering, people
Sure.
in our sales industry.
Well, really quickly though, I mean, was that the only example that you had seen, right? So you were mirroring kind of what you had been brought up in, if you will, right? Um,
Well,
I
yeah,
think.
you're actually right, because it was my that's what I saw, that's that as far as I knew, that's how you rent a dealership,
Right.
right? That's how
And that's
my
how many are run still to this day. I mean,
that's true.
with more HR, checks and balances in there. But I started pre-HR, and boy, was it colorful. But I think we used to call it getting our hair parted, right? When someone, one of the managers would scream at you, and you just get um, but it was definitely not the most encouraging environment. It was definitely not, the most positive. It was just you got work like a dog. And I remember the dealers. I mean, at that same group that I mentioned earlier, when I first started there, if you were the last one on the board, regardless of how many cars you sold, I mean, it could have been 20, it didn't matter. But if you were the last one on the board, every month you got fired. And so imagine the culture that fostered, right? Everybody
I
was,
was same dealership, yep,
yeah, I mean, and so that's just, that's the kind of place where I loved so many things about it, but at the same time, I did not. I knew that that's not how I wanted to. If I ever had the opportunity, I
Mhm.
just knew that's not how I wanted to lead or how I wanted to run. My store ultimately that I ended up running, or to run any team that I ever had the opportunity to run.
Well, no, look, and look, I got better. I'm gonna admit, I totally
Yeah,
got better. I kinda had this aha moment, kinda looked at myself in the mirror. I'm like, "Is
the
this the
pillow
way?"
hit you in the face, right?
Pillow kinda hit me in the face. It was kinda like, "Is this how I really kinda wanna be known as,"
Yeah,
and my ultimate goal was ultimately to become an owner, and I did actually very shortly after that.
that's
But
right.
it was like I had to kinda have a moment with myself and say, and, here's the other thing, it also caused me a lot of stress. By the way,
Yeah,
leading people that way is a very stressful way to
yeah,
lead people. And I found that as I kind of, I could connect people from an intelligence perspective, meaning like, hey, look, I understand you want to get out of your mom's basement and you want to buy a brand new ski-doo. All right. Well, let me map out every activity and effort you're going to need to actually get this. I know you're going to
yeah.
want to pay for your kids' college. Let me map this out for you and show you exactly how many cars ultimately you're going to need to, like that. I was good. That's what I was good at. But then the emotional side. But as I actually realized, I found that my team performed better. I performed better. It
Mhm.
was kind of like this untapped, like
Yeah.
turbo boost thing. I didn't even necessarily understand, but it was now I was understanding, and being more empathetic to to why people were committing. Anyways, I digress.
It's true what you're talking about. I mean, you're not going off on a tangent. You're talking about something that's very real. It's everybody starts to feel the energy, right? And that's
Yes,
contagious.
that's what it
And
is.
then it becomes something bigger than just you or themselves, right? And so everyone kind of gets involved, and that just explodes. And it's inexplainable a lot of times how that happens, or even specifically why it happens, but it does in the right culture. You're 100% right.
Well, you know what? Next topic I kind of want to get into, which is just perfect expansion off of going into people. I want to go into the next big P, which
Yeah.
is process.
Yes.
Right. And Ray, I actually posted something recently about this, and a few weeks ago I was kind of on the road. I was hitting up some good friends of mine, seeing a few dealers, and hanging out a little bit, and was doing a little bit kind of mentoring on a few people, right? And I got into a dealership where I was waiting for a meeting to get over so that my meeting could start, and I watched this salesperson and customer who looked like they just finished negotiating a deal, but as a part of the deal, the customer wanted to get a lift kit, and some new tires. And there was no process for this. In fact, I mean, I just watching the parts department, the way that they treated the salesperson, the way they were treating the customer getting frustrated because they weren't listening to what he really wanted, and they were quoting the wrong thing, and going back, and the prices were all over the place. And the guy was, oh, whoops, I said the wrong thing. And it was just like, you could tell there was no process. I mean, this guy was ready to cancel this deal. Now, luckily, the salesperson was amazing, was able to kind of calm and situate it. But it was, I watched this
Yeah.
47-minute fully broken, or just a total lack of a process, almost destroy an entire customer's
Car deal.
experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love,
And the car deal as well. I mean, the guy wants to purchase this car and he's going to have to start all over. It's not enticing either. It's because the process is so bad. And it can't just stop at process either, though, Jason. I mean, you can put a process in place, but you have to train people on it, and you have to reinforce that training on it too.
good point.
Otherwise,
And therefore it has to be written, right,
yeah,
Ray?
exactly, exactly. You got to document it, train on it, and then review it and revise it as needed all the time.
That's a great point. I mean, the process, I'm with you on this, because I do kind of feel like process is kind of like this organic organism where
Yeah,
it's kind of constantly always evolving. I've told people many, many times, like, whatever process we put in place right now, there'll be 13 variations of this by the time we're done with it. Because to your point, like a good process. Here's the other thing, Ray, I got to be totally honest with you. I am still surprised today how many dealerships I walk into and sit down with upper management or even ownership,
yeah,
find a total lack of documentation when it
yeah.
comes to the process. You know, the process exists, Ray?
Up
Up,
to someone's head, exactly.
just
Yeah.
up in their heads. So
Well, and it might be different depending on the day that you ask them too. I mean, that's the sad part, right?
yeah, it's,
Yeah. On Monday, the process is this. On Friday, the process is this. Yeah.
you've been in the same dealership I
Yeah,
have.
it's not scalable or functional or anything like that. Yes, I've worked with those same dealers. No, I'm just kidding. And I think, listen, I think there's so many moving parts in a dealership that I would never, and having been a GM myself, I would never be disparaging to a dealership. I think there's a lot of trust put in middle management a lot of times that this stuff will get done, and there's no checks and balances to ensure it gets done because there's so many moving parts and there's so much going on in a dealership that it falls through the cracks. And that's, I think, where I put my focus, and it just didn't happen because you have to be able, when something breaks down, you have to be able to say, okay, what was the process and where did it fail?
Yes.
Otherwise, you can never correct the problem. You can't ensure that it doesn't happen again, right? Because when you say, where did it fail? Then what do we need to do to make sure it doesn't happen again, right? That's the final piece to it.
Well, and you know what? I think that's a perfect segue kind of to our next topic, because now we look at the technology,
Yeah,
right? And the technology today. Well, here's what I'm excited about automotive technology today.
yeah,
All right, is that I feel like we've left the era of widgets. Do you remember the era of widgets?
yeah,
Right? Like,
yeah,
it
yeah,
started around like 2005, went all the way
yeah,
to like 2018 or so. It was just like, and everybody had a widget for
yeah,
something, right? But what these widgets ended up doing were actually generating new processes, not actually complementing existing process. And to your point, Ray, like you were saying earlier, is that process has to be measurable so
yeah.
that we can continue to optimize it. I want to get your kind of take on how dealerships should be approaching technology today, and what they should be kind of looking for that will in a way support process and people.
Yeah, that is a loaded question, but an important one, I think, right? And there's a variety of answers to it. So let me just say that mine's not 100% correct, or the only one, I guess I should say. But technology is amazing. I mean, when I think about the technology that's in place today, if only I'd had that, right?
Right,
When,
I know.
I was in sales, or when I was a GM, or when I was running, sales ops for a group. I mean, my gosh, there is so much available to really allow a dealership to operate seamlessly and intelligently. And I mean, this is going back to the day that you may have worked on these too, Jason. I mean, we had cards, right? Little in a box. I mean, that was your follow up card. I mean, there's no such thing as a CRM when I started, but I keep dating myself. That's probably not good, but
Sure.
uh, anyhow, I've seen the evolution. No, the technology is valuable, and what I really strongly believe in, and it's a hard thing to, I think, when you think about the control that goes into managing or dealing with change in a dealership,
Hmm.
there's so much control over, well, we can't impact our gross by a dollar, right? Negatively,
Yes.
or the fear of impacting the gross negatively by a dollar. That there's a paralysis, I think, in adopting some of this amazing automation.
Good
That
point.
do your homework, vet it, but really, there's so much out there that can take these tasks away from what could be a sales manager in a dealership, that really fosters growth and leads the team to achieve next level success, versus a manager that gets stuck at the desk because they have so many duties they have to do, that technology could replace those duties and allow them to get out and do what they really should have been hired for, which is to lead that team, and be hands-on with them and coach them, and implement their wisdom with them and all of those things. But I think that there's a paralysis going on sometimes, where we're looking at, oh, the times are tough. We've gone from record high profits down to some challenging profits with all of the economic factors in this industry, which are, I mean, one thing about this industry, from the time I started to probably about, I don't know, 6 years ago, it was so predictable. Really,
Right.
I mean, if the economy crashed, then of course you had trouble with the automotive industry, but this has been such there have been so many unprecedented things that have happened, and unpredictable. I mean, completely unpredictable
Mm.
things that you would just be like, that never would have happened in automotive 10 years ago, you would have thought, right? And so when that happens, the paranoia to change your process, even if it sucks, right? Um, is there for so many people. And I understand that, or to invest in something again that your team may not use. But really, it all starts at the top. I mean, you have to decide what's going to help your dealership grow, get the buy-in from your team, and that's on a leader to get the buy-in. I mean, you can't just say, well, my team doesn't do the things that they're supposed to do. Well, then that's on you. It's not on their team. You got to make the changes. You got to be involved enough to know what changes need to be made to make that happen. But putting in technology that will allow your staff to work smarter,
Yes.
more efficiently, more effectively, and more seamlessly with customers, and utilizing the automation that's available to put their time better to use in other areas, is so important. And it's all there today. It wasn't there 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
No, no. I mean, look, it really wasn't. And if um, it was technology for the sake of being technology. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like it was, it's not like what it is today. You're 100% right. Like the level of automation and opportunities out there, we should be able to take those documented processes that we have at the dealership. And I would say, look at automating, 30%
Yeah.
of those processes, so that we're reallocated back that time, so that we can continue to develop out better experiences, for our customers. And that automation to me is like a safety net too, when set up correctly. Like, look, I would consider myself to be a great salesperson,
Yeah.
amazing at follow up. Hell, man, there's still time I forget stuff.
Oh,
you know
everyone, we're human.
we're
That's
human.
where that's
That's
where automated technology helps, right? I mean, it's
100%. And
yeah.
then not only about automotive, but I mean, you have automation. I love what's coming out now from the data side of the industry, and looking
Oh,
at things like predictive models. Like
yes.
our industry is always, has been kind of plagued with this, um, this reactiveness in some cases, not always, but there is just this kind of general reactiveness sometimes. And a lot of industries, a lot of other verticals don't accept that. And that's because they look at the data, they analyze the data, they predict
Yeah,
things off that data. And I love the fact that our industry has really kind of got into that mode just in the last few
I agree.
years. Like
I
it's
love
it's
it. I'm so passionate about it, and it's so exciting to me. I think, the data that dealerships have is so powerful. I mean, there's so much there, and most sadly haven't figured out what to do with it. And I think that the whole conversation about, I mean, data is the darling right now, right? And I think it's exciting. I mean, I think there was a time, I don't know, I'm dating myself again. The Dadium days, where that was a fraction of what you could do today, but it was still a concept that was so new, and uh, you know unproven, but very exciting when you think about what you could do with those concepts, right? And
course.
taking your data. And it was funny to me. I mean, I remember thinking at an early age, when the only time we kind of really worked smart, before there were even CRMs, was if there was a recall.
Exactly.
Or if there was, some kind of crazy incentive, it would be like, go through all of your records and find every customer that applies to this. And so my mind started thinking that way early on. And
Mhm.
so when I had the opportunity to be the leader or to have, more technology to help support getting those nuggets of information, it wasn't just, like you said, in a reactive manner. It was, how can we create our own success and our own future, and our own opportunities, not just wait for them to come to us, or spend the traditional marketing dollars to do that. Um,
Well, and look, I think that's what ultimately makes a good sales leader, right? I mean, if we kind of bring
yeah,
back to where we kind of originally the umbrella topic that we had today, it was around sales leadership. We've kind of covered people about people in general and
yeah,
our EQ and our approach to people. And how I need to get better, but still that's fine. We talked about the process and how important they are to be documented so that our team can be led,
yeah,
by those processes. Look, guys, when anybody out there watching this right now, like if a process exists in your head, I can guarantee you, if you're supposedly leading a group of individuals right now, every single one of them have a different variation than what's in your head right now.
exactly, 100%.
This
And
doesn't happen.
you got to keep those processes simple too. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, I mean, most recently at Fuse, you'd walk into a dealership or you'd talk to a dealership and you'd say, tell me about your sales process. And two different people would tell you two different things on the same, call or in the same meeting, right? And then if they did, you would, whatever the answer was, you'd say, okay, well, let's back up then. Let's just kind of talk about it. We'll jot through the process and kind of, get to an end product here, that just high level summary. What's the first step, second step, third step? And it ended up being countless steps. And you're like, this is complicated. This is too complicated for today. Maybe not, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever, but too complicated for today. And how do your people, like, where are the biggest failure points in these processes, right? Because that's where we know we need to do some adjusting and curving. And what can we cut out? What doesn't have to be there anymore? What can we let technology do in this process now? Um, so that then there's more people to have eyeballs on how the process is working and connecting, right?
Exactly.
Um, and the baton then gets handed over seamlessly to whatever the next step or process or person is. I mean, it's next step of the process or the next person. So no one's dropping it. And I think that it is often in people's head, and the only time it gets spoken is when a person on the team unfortunately is doing something that is against what that person thinks the process is, that it's in their head. and
Exactly.
and that doesn't help anyone learn or grow, and they still don't know what's expected of them. At the end of the day, they know what they're not supposed to do, but what is it that they're supposed to do to be considered successful? And that is the biggest challenge, I think, in many people's teams today, is that the people don't know what's expected of them, because there's nothing written, there's nothing coached on, there's nothing enhanced or improved on.
And look, and that kind of goes into our last topic for today perfectly well, because we're talking about the baton and how to hand it off.
Yeah.
And as we look, so far we've covered people, we've talked about process, we talked about how technology should be supporting those processes and help us better them either through data or automation. But look, when we kind of combine all three of these together, and you have that baton handing, the team, the coach, like you said, right?
Mhm.
This starts to create, either intentionally or unintentionally, this mystical thing we call in sales departments culture.
Mhm.
And I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on how we can be more intentional in developing culture, because I think culture happens regardless if we're there or not. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it does. And you don't end up with a good culture by accident. So it's going to happen one way or the other. And so you might as well get involved and create and craft the culture that you want, right? So that everybody is feeling good, instead of, feeling, um, when you're not leading and not having a process, a culture gets created. It's just not a good one. Does
For
that
sure.
make sense? So, and it doesn't help lend to the success that you're trying to achieve. So I think, for me, again, early on, I knew that I knew that a positive work environment helps everyone,
Hmm.
um, you know, strive to be their best. Does that, so, you don't have to run around giving everybody kudos all day, every day, or anything like that, but you certainly need to reinforce good behavior. You need to immediately address what would be negative or bad behavior. Um, because if you don't, then the folks that are doing the good behavior get really upset, and over time that they're not happy because they're working hard to do the best and the other person's getting away with whatever. But to summarize it all, I think that you have to establish the kind of environment and culture that you want, and
Yes.
with that, then you have to put key things in place to um, not just model it, but enforce it and encourage it.
No,
Um,
100%. You have to give them a North Star,
right.
right? Like,
That's a very, very good.
look,
Yes.
look here. At the end of the day, we all know what we do. All right. There's a
Yeah.
30-foot sign outside our
Yeah.
building that says exactly what we do. Okay.
Right.
We sell metal and we service metal, but
Yeah.
why we do it the way we do it.
Yeah.
All right. And this is for any sales industry, any sales department out there. I don't care if you're a vendor or if you're a dealer listening to this, right?
Yeah.
Why you do it the way you do it is that North Star. And if it's not mapped out, to your point, Ray, everybody will find their own North Star.
I love
And,
it.
the North Star is not always a positive thing. The first dealership I worked at, the North Star was very, very clear. Make as much money as humanly
Yeah.
possible on every single person that came through the door. And we
Yeah.
were damn good at it. Like,
Jason, you were probably trained the same way I was. You befriend them, put your hand out. Hey, welcome to John Eagle Motors, and then you befriend them all the way through the process. Yes, yes, yes to everything. You get them in your office, and then you turn on them, peel them off the ceiling. And I was like, I can't. I don't want to do that. That's not like I have to look myself in the mirror every day, so I can't do that. But that was they're like, oh, young lady, you're going to do that. It was kind of funny, but obviously I didn't do that. I mean, I got yelled at a lot for doing it my own way, but they found out that worked. But it's going to be something, and it sounds like you and I started at maybe the same store. I don't know.
but you know what? You're right. If we're not intentional about it, it will happen. So anybody out there watching and listening, this is what me and Ray are just saying. Okay,
Yeah,
is that to be a good leader, you got to be on top of your people, you got to be on top of your process, and you got to make sure that the technologies that you're investing in, and it is investment. Okay,
yeah,
the technology you're investing is not adding processes to your people, but is complementing the processes either through automation and data. And look, if you're not intentional, watch out. Culture will just happen completely on its own. You know, both,
yeah,
both you and Ray are saying the same thing here. We encourage you to go out, find your North Star. Hey, Ray, I know we're getting towards the tail end of our time, and I know we could
yeah.
easily just keep going here for at
I
least
keep
another.
going forever. Yes.
But before I let you go, though, for everybody out there watching, and listening right now, who's kind of enjoyed this conversation, maybe like to pick
Yeah,
up this conversation with you and kind of continue to go with it.
that would be fun.
What's the best way to connect with you?
Yes, I would say my phone or my email, either one. I don't know. Can I share those on
Sure,
this?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, we don't.
So my phone is 503-888-2959. Pretty easy number there. And then my email is just Rae, RAE dot Selvey, SELVEY at gmail.com.
There we go. See, I love when people do that, by the way. They just gotta throw it out there. Say, "Hey, give me a call." You know?
Yeah, I love that. I love talking automotive. It's something that I think, having done it as long as I have, and just, it's such an exciting industry. And I think we're all lucky to be in it, right? I mean, you can write your own ticket. You can, be a young kid that didn't end up going to college, or was trying to figure out what you were going to do until you went to college or saved enough money for it. And then you end up in this crazy industry where you make more money than all of your friends that, got doctorates or whatever. And I think that, it's a funny, funny industry. And it's also can be very messy. And I think that anything, when we talked about people, process, technology, culture, whatever it is, the leaders really have to invest themselves into whatever it is that they're doing. If we're buying technology and putting it in place, you have to invest yourself in it to ensure that it's going to be successful. And you do that not just for the sake of yourself, but for the sake of your team, because everything that you do for your team, and everything that you do to improve your team's life, like moving just obstacles. I just always imagine, doing this, moving obstacles, moving obstacles, moving obstacles. That makes their lives better. And that means that they're more excited to do their job every day, which ultimately pays off for you in the end, right? I mean, that's just a nice byproduct, but
Absolutely.
it feels better too, right?
It does. It does. It does. And you know what? And hey, for everyone out there watching, listening, we really appreciate your time. I encourage you, make sure you guys reach out to Ray, connect with her. She's an amazing person. She loves talking. She just loves helping anybody and everybody. Ray, thank you so much for taking the time to jam with me today. This has been a lot of fun.
Thanks, Jason. It was a pleasure. Appreciate you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Strategy with Jason podcast with your host, Jason Harris. Don't want to miss new content? Be sure to check out the full podcast library at strategywithjason.com to stay in the know. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy podcasting.